Hi, this is Mike Pucciarelli, and tonight I'll be talking about how I use Adobe Photoshop and Camera Raw and also Lightroom to process beautiful still life images and also images in other areas like architecture, landscape, nature, portraits, and of course, light painting, product photography. I first just want to talk about who I am. I started professional photography in 2010, got an associate's degree in 2013. I started out as a landscape nature photographer, and then I got into portraits, and I got into still life, and I really like still life. Still life is like my forte. In 2015, I joined Professional Photographers of America, and then in 2017, I joined the Maryland Club, Maryland Affiliate Club. In 2020, I joined the Pennsylvania Club. And I'm very thankful for all the resources of PPA.com and also the virtual learning and Zoom and other online resources. So first I'm going to talk about portraits, how I did this one. There's ways to get a fancy background. Then I'm going to talk about how I did waterfalls. This is a recent trip I took in Shenandoah, Labor Day weekend, September 7th, 2020. I use a special process, HDR process for this. And this is also the same trip, but also in the afternoon. It was a great one-day trip. And I'll talk about architecture. I shoot a lot here. I also do other stuff here too, like evangelism, but I like the Georgetown waterfronts. This is a special HDR process. I'll talk about how I did this file. And then I'm going to talk about how I do the black plexi table. And I'm going to talk about how I do the white plexi table. Then I'm going to talk about how I do some food, some desserts. And then talk about how I do light painting. Talk about the other three of these images. Now I'm going to go to Adobe Bridge. First, going to go to Portraits. So the raw file, I start with the raw file. I started in the Camera Raw. You can also get there by doing Control Commands R. As I said, I start very basic. Try to find a neutral. And I just work my way down. I like to adjust the texture and the clarity. And I also like to do, the curve. Look at S curve to give it good contrast. For portraits, I like to use something over 120, noise reduction at 50, so you hide the effects. I like to remove chromatic aberrations. I like to use profile correction, so I have both of these checked. Geometry distortion, I like to use the auto in this automatic. This is like auto, it fixes it automatically. Most of the times I use auto for this a lot in still life, architecture, nature. And I click done. Now I'll talk about landscape. Talk about that Shenandoah trip I took. Basically, these are 3 raw files. I bring them up. I can either load the files into Photoshop layers or merge HDR flow. I like just to load the files into Photoshop layers. Okay. This is the HDR process. I could load it into layers. I can do HDR Pro. Now I'm going to go to architecture. I'm first going to do Camera Raw, and then I'll get into Photoshop. This is really, actually it's this file. This one. This is basically 3 HDR images that I'll load the layers into Photoshop. Now I'm going to go into still life, where I have all these images. I select the best one. Then I come in here, and then I go to Camera Raw. So I set the white balance. I try to find a neutral. So the neutral is when the reds and greens and blues are equal. Try to find a mid-tone that does that. Then I come here and I make changes slowly. Maybe I could reduce the highlights. Maybe I can increase the shadows. So I'll increase the texture, the clarity. I'll do the curve. I want to make like an S curve. For detail or sharpening, I like to use at least 140. I like to use 50 like I did the others, noise reduction. And optics, I like to use remove chromatic aberration, use profile corrections. Like that, both of those checked. And for the distortion of the geometry, I like to just use this first A for auto. It automatically syncs it. It takes care of the distortions. Sometimes there's no correction found. That's fine. And I click done. I'll get on my white plexi. I'm going to go selections. I decided to process image again. Here's the final thing. I'm going to tell what I did in the file. Basically, I do the same thing. I set the white balance, find a neutral, make some changes, work my way down, the shadows, the whites, textures. And then the curve, try to have like an S curve. For sharpening, I like to use anything above 140 for products and still life. Noise reduction, I still want to use 50. I have both of these checked to take care of problems. It's remove chromatic aberration. It's use profile corrections. I like to just use the auto for A. It does it automatically. Then with food, I like to do something a little extra. Here's the adjustment brush. And I like to just work in this area, and I already did. So I do is I increase the exposure, contrast. Yep. Let's see, well, take the shadows. Then I just paint in the colors with the adjustment brush using Adobe Camera Raw. Then I'm going to do, the same thing. Go back to the other folder. I pick out the best one. I do Control 5. Here's the finished Adobe, but here is the raw file. We go to Adobe Camera Raw. Basically, I go through the same steps. Start at basic, trying to find a neutral, and make some changes, and I did. Increase the texture, the clarity. Try to have like an S curve. And for the sharpening, I like to use anything above 140, reduction of 50. Both of these checks remove chromatic aberration, use profile corrections. I like to use the auto, it automatically corrects it. I click done. Now I'm going to go to light painting. light painting. These are images painted with a LED flashlight. I pick out the best ones. I put them in here. I got a Lightroom. I export the JPEGs. I put them in here. Then I take the JPEGs. I put them with a master art file. These are all exported from Lightroom and they're copied over from the JPEG folder to here. So basically, these are all composites for JPEGs. Same thing. These are all LED light painted image. I'm focusing on part of the image. So these are composites and I paste them into the master file. Solo parts. I pick out the best ones. And the JPEGs from Lightroom come here. Then I move the JPEGs into the master art file. In a master art file, it starts out as a blank file. And these objects are I copy from the JPEG and I paste it in and I use special blend modes. And when we get into Adobe Photoshop, I'll do that. I'll show you how to do that. Same thing, the third file I'm going to go over. These are all LED painted images. I do Control-5 to select the best ones. I come in here. I put them in here. Go to Lightroom and export the JPEGs. Then I move the JPEGs from here JPEGs are in the master file, the black file, the dark file. This started out as a blank dark file, but now it's the final product. Now I'm going to go to Adobe Photoshop. First, I'll talk about how I did that portrait. This is now the Adobe Photoshop file. When I did this background, what I did was, there's several ways I can select the subject. I can do object selection. And I could do, I don't want to select this, I want to select this part, so then I would do select inverse. Now this is before I put these black frames on. Then I'm going to do Shift F5 and there's the pattern. Pattern I use was trees, but you could use any of these patterns. And then whatever you click, it'll be in the background. This is a great way to create a background if you didn't have any background material with you when you shoot. Control D is unselect. And I put this in the layer so I can adjust the background. And I like to click Auto. Then I could also adjust the contrast. Now, this is an action over here. Click this, and it brings up this. In here, there's two things I'm burning and dodging. I'm burning at the luminosity level. I'm dodging with the screen level. And I use a very soft brush. I like to use 51%, and I just paint. Then I have actions like, I have action for the speckle, I have action for sharpen, dust and scratches. I'm going to show you these menus. Like I have it at 3. I have a macro that does this. The macro to set the radius to 3 and perform the filter, sharpening, like these 200. Goals are bringing it up by 25%. Goals are bringing it at 25%. Like it's a little too sharp, so I'm going to bring it down to 200. I click OK. But I have an action for the speckle. I have an action for sharpen. I have an action for dust and scratches. I have an action for this frame. Like I've entered an IPC competition, which is here. It's already done, but I'll just do it again to illustrate. I'll do Control Z. And then there's an action if the height is bigger, I use this action. If the width is bigger, then I use this action. And then the resolution should be when the height is at 400 max. So I do the action. Actually, I'm going to do Control Z. Have an action. So now the height made this 400. The action did this. When I push F12, bring it back to the original file. Now I'm going to go to landscape, the waterfall. Go to the Photoshop file. I have an action for this. I'm going to use the dodge bird action. I burn a luminosity at 51% with a very soft brush. I dodge at screen, 51%, same brush. And there's actions for these frames. There are other actions too, like if I have an action if I want to clear the guides. I have an action if I want to fill with white. Gray. Black. And there's also an action for use watermark. Now I'm going to go to the valley photo. Again, I'm going to make the photo smaller. Use the 3 raw files, flatten the one. I use the same dodge and burn group. Use levels, and there's some of their actions, some of them are not. I'm going to save the JPEG. I'll do a quick JPEG, but then I'm going to show you the settings that I use. Quality 100, escort export is asked. I convert to sRGB. I click OK. Now we go to architecture. Which is a great place for architecture photographs. And the same thing, I use the same dodge burn action, I use the levels. And I just speckle. I have an action for the frame, enter an IPC. Let's talk about the black plexi table. And I want to warn you about the black set table. You do a lot more cloning because dust is a lot more evident than white plexi. That's why you'll be using this a lot, doing a lot of spot healing. You may also be doing this a lot too. It's Control F5, and that's why you're using content aware. You can also use filter, blur, Gaussian blur to take out stuff. Small specs, many ways to do things. I have a layer for the background. Dodge and burn. I burn at a luminosity. I like to use, soft brush, like these 51% or 50%, like the dodge with the screen, the same opacity. I use the same actions. Speckle. Dust and scratches. There's also, I even have a action for content aware. There are 2 spoons. I like to use an interesting angle to make it stand out better. Do the same dodge burn thing. This is just for the background where I have the subject select, and I do select inverse. Again, with the black plexi table, you will be spot healing a lot. You will be cloning a lot. You'll be doing a lot of content aware a lot. Because the black plexi table, dust is a lot more evident than white. HT. We talked about the Camera Raw. Same thing, dodge and burn. Use a normal mode up here. Then I do the same thing over here. Stream. Like these is opacity 51% for both of these. This is just affecting the background. Talked about the raw file. So I did another, and I decided to do it again. I'm trying to bring out the cookies, touch and burn levels. I use the same actions to speckle. Give an action for the watermark. Plus the scratches. Now, I'm going to talk about light painting. How I use Photoshop and light painting. I'll make this a smaller document. And all these layers are images, parts of images copied from the JPEG. They're composited on here. I would open a few JPEGs. I'm going to use this one. Not a perfect selection, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to fix it. So I'm going to use the Alt or Option key. I'm going to try to fix this. There we go. I'm going to copy. I'm going to paste. I'm going to stretch it in the shape. I'm going to make it here. I'm going to make this lighter. Now, I'm going to turn this into a layer mask, pushing the Alt or Option key. I'm going to push the layer mask thing here. Should be opposites. I'm going to use a very soft brush. Very soft brush. I'm going to change the blend mode, the color, gray. the first coat. Then I'm going to change the screen. I'm going to change to the white, color white. I'm going to just try soft light. I might choose another blood mode, but not screen. The thing about these JPEGs is you could have many selections from this one JPEG to build the image. Select the object. So make the selection a little better. Under Control C or Command C. I drop it into place, drag it into place. Here, I'm going to change the color to gray. Change the color to white. Change the blood mode to soft light. Oh. I'm on the wrong layer. Make sure I'm on the right layer. Gotta make sure that you're on the layer, but I already did this. I'm going to throw this away. So basically, I did this image. I did gray. Screen blend mode, do some painting. Then I use white, and then I would paint in the color soft light. I also try to use overlay, do more painting. Now I'm going to open up another one. These are all the master files with the JPEGs ordered from Lightroom. Go up the master file first. the screen smaller. I'm going to open up some JPEGs. And select the selection. And I'm going to make it a little better. I'm going to switch to the quick selection. Use a shift. I'll hit Control C a few times. I'll deselect all these layers. Turn it into layer mask. Just all the option key and the symbol here. Let's change color gray. Then I'm going to change the color to white. Second coat of paint. Use several dramatic blend modes to get the effect that you like. Same thing. Now we're going to make the selection a little better. I'm going to switch over to the quick selection. We'll see. Turn this into a layer mask. I'm going to paint with gray. First want to stretch into place, but make sure you're really painting in gray. Well, I'll just, basically is after I stretch him into place, start with gray, use green blend the paint, Change the white. Do more painting. So again, 3D. Same actions. There's an action for this. Dust and scratches action, sharpen action, speckle action. Same thing. The file is basically, I'll make the screen smaller. A blank file. And then this guy. The color to gray. There's some painting, then do the same thing. The same thing. So that concludes my Adobe presentation. If you have any questions, just feel free to contact me on social media, Instagram, Facebook, or our portfolio. I also have a finer website that sells it. Very thankful for all the PPA.com resources they have and the online resources of other companies. Thank God for Zoom, and wouldn't be able to do this webinar without Zoom. So just thank you for listening to this presentation.